It's working.
And we're back, folks.
So I apologize to everyone. That was my fault. I actually was trying to play my own song
How,
and I was blocked.
How dare you, sir?
How dare me, right? That was just something. And my mic is glowing. Let me fix that too.
Oh, yeah, I love that.
Technical difficulties are here.
Well, welcome to Content Content. And if ever there were a reason to do some quote-unquote copyright infringement, I suppose this would be a good time to do so.
Yeah, they should certainly give people a pass who are the creators of the music, though. I mean, and give us some sort of a pass.
You'd figure, yeah. Or at least if they're going to take it down because of copyright, send you a check for it having been played.
Yeah, I mean, what are we supposed to do, right? So anyway, so I wanted to start the show playing DMX's video for Slippin'. And I kind of wanted to do that because I've been thinking a lot about X and, his passing. And I've been thinking a lot about it. And one of the things that, it's a lot of people thinking about it, right? He had so many people who loved him and who followed him. And one of the things that stands out to me, I've been thinking about his life a lot, and I did a post on my Instagram, and is that he was so transparent as a human being, like forget about we don't even need to get into the music or anything like that. I mean, just like as a human, like he was so transparent, like his flaws, his good things, his bad things, his struggles, he just told his story, and I've been just watching old stuff and interviews, and he said something in one that was a real jewel. He said that your pride to not tell your story could be the reason you don't save someone's life. And that really hit home because, there's a fear within all of us of telling your story. It's scary, man. Like to tell your real story. It's so scary. Like to tell I'm not saying that just to tell a piece of your story or something you went through, but to tell that deep story that you're scared to even think about because it's too hard. That's a level of transparency that you barely see with people. Just in general. Like if you have one person in your life or two that are that transparent, I think you're rare and lucky.
Mm-hmm.
Now you take someone like like Earl Simmons, like DMX, who became a superstar, and he still remained transparent. Like he still remained crystal. Like this is who I am. I struggle with these things. I mean, for God's sakes, in the song we did, even in we couldn't put out on Slippin', we couldn't put out a dirty version because Grover Washington Jr. he restricted it with the sample clearance. But even in the dirty version, they insisted to bleep out a part, which was "Look how that," and he goes, "Look how that rock got him," because they didn't want people to know that this was earlier in his career, and they didn't want him to know that he actually struggled with crack, because that would be like something that would make people look at him differently.
Right.
But he didn't care. That's the point I'm saying. It's not to trash him in any way. It's for the courage to be. Think about that. You're in rap. Excuse me. You're in rap, which is like this highly show off, image, external. And then here comes this guy who's brave enough to tell his story and say, in that song, he goes, "Look how that rock got him." I mean, that's a level of not having pride, of bravery, and it's something we could all learn from, as humans. Like his story, beyond the music, which is why he's so impactful, because it's not even, music is one thing and music is powerful, but beyond the music, his story of someone who was completely, left, just discarded, and to take that situation, just his perseverance alone is story enough. Just that alone, that he constantly kept overcoming obstacles. He constantly, you can look and you can kind of be like judgmental, and I want to talk about that too, because I have a friend of mine who sends me he kind of spams me like Calvinist, fundamentalist, Christian stuff. And there's a guy ambassador, and he's got a video floating around talking about X. And it's really sad to see the immaturity of these Christians who pose as spiritually intellectual Bible experts. This guy gets on there. He spends about 9 minutes, basically questioning whether X, was a real believer, pulling up different scriptures, and then even
Oh
he
man.
doesn't say it, but he puts it out there to the point where like maybe it was his sin, that this happened. He
Mm,
doesn't say that. He's very careful. He's a very smart guy,
sure.
but he ends it saying, we don't know. So that's like his
Jeez.
PC, right? And you know what, man? One thing about X, he transcended that religiousness. He transcended. He wasn't out there. One of the coolest things that looking back now, one of the coolest things is he never proselytized. He never was like, you know, you can be saved today. You can, he just shared his experience with the world.
Mm.
He had this relationship with Source, with God, and he just shared it with everyone. He never he prayed for people. He didn't say pray for me. He did this sharing of his story, and I think that's a lot that we could learn from him, and it is interesting, how people with these traumatic experiences, God uses that to teach all of us. He takes these situations that many people will judge, but it's their own hardness of heart and their own religiosity, and that makes them judge people like that. And shame. I want to say shame on any, if you're in any Christian circle and they're passing judgment on X, shame on you, because he was braver about speaking about Jesus than any of you. He went, and in the environment, you got to understand the environment. Even in the company he's in, to be yourself to that level, it's very hard. I couldn't even be myself in around those people. I didn't have the courage to be Mike Gomez because you're so suppressed. There's so much ego. There's so much trying to control you. X has poems about the industry. The industry don't give a about you. You know, and he has a funny one where he goes and he says, he's like, and I'm like, yo, he's talking about the industry, and he goes, and it's a very short. It's like 3 lines, the whole poem. And, he's like, and I go, yo, where you going? And he goes, and it's a very short. It's like 3 lines, the whole poem. And he's like, and I go, yo, where you going? And he's like, and I go, yo, where you going? And he's like, and I go, yo, where you going? And he's like, and I go, yo, where you going? And he's like, and I go, yo, where you going? And he's like, and I go, yo, where you going? And he's like, and I go, yo, where you going? And he's like, and I go, yo, where you going? And he's like, and I go, yo, where you going? And he's like, and I go, yo, where you going? And he's like, and I go, yo, where you going? And he's like, and I go, yo, where you going? And he's like, and I go, yo, where you going? And he's like, and I go, yo, where you going? And he's like, and I go, yo, where you going? And he's like, and I go, yo, where you going? And he's like, and I go, yo, where you going? And he's like, and I go, yo, where you going? And he's like, and I go, yo, where you going? And he's like, and I go, yo, where you going? And he's like, and I go, yo, where you going? And he's And they're like, yeah, and he's right there. And the point of that, a lot of people will not catch that, but I almost know who he's talking about.
I'm sure.
And the point, I know exactly who he's talking about because that person yabbed me so many times when I was talking about something else. They do not care at all about you, and that's another thing. I want to talk about that too. The industry, the capital. You know I'm going to kick the system's ass today, right, Derek?
Please do.
The system of music. There's another rapper right now, Black Rob, and he's in a terrible spot. And this guy was on Puffy's label. This guy, and he's not the only one. Craig Mack, he passed away, and they chew you up and they spit you out. They use you. Now X was a particularly strong person who could endure being that of use like that in the industry. And he's a very rare individual, very rare individual. I'm like so sure, how I will never meet anyone like that again. And uh, there will never be another one. That's It's not even something to imagine. Like if you ever someone deserves to be slapped if they say you're the next X. Let's put it that way. Like they need to be smacked and kicked out the business. Don't ever say that. There's never gonna be one. And another thing too, he spoke for the voiceless, and that is like, and he says it. Like I was reviewing a lot of things and stuff that I forgot that I'd seen. He says in another one, he says, he's giving advice to somebody, and he's saying, be the voice for the voiceless. And he understood how scared most of us are to speak our truth. He had this special understanding that many will not speak up. They're in the same situation, and no one's going to speak up for them, and they're not even going to speak up for themselves. So he took that on, and it's fascinating. And I want to condemn again. Any like very religious circles, or if you're questioning his salvation, shame on you, because you don't. If you're doing that, you don't understand what love is, and you don't understand the first thing of source of God, of who you may not even love yourself. If you're thinking that, I'm gonna go that far to say, if those are your thoughts, you're probably questioning your own salvation. You're probably questioning if you might not even know what it is to love yourself. You're that far, and I'll be bold enough to say that you're that far from God if you're questioning His salvation. You don't understand the first thing about God's love. And that's my my spiel, man. You know me, Derek. I thought about this all week, and I've been struggling with it, and that's where I'm at with his passing. And my condolences to his family, and I bet you right now, there's probably a struggle between family and industry right now. That's just the business is terrible. You know what I'm saying? Like I told you the other day, someone reached out to me. I don't even want to reach out back because I don't want to play in that mud, in that dirt. If I had to, I guess I would, but it's not something you want to do. And my heart goes out to his family because they're probably fighting that battle that he fought. Now they have to fight it for him.
Right.
They got to take on what he would fight against the industry to keep his message pure, to not put money first, to not just be a commodity. The family has to do that now. They have to take that burden, and they never had to because he took it. And if there's any, that's a sad part of this. That's a sad reality.
Yeah.
And I really hope that they do right by his family, because I've seen other situations. Like when Pun passed away, like Fat Joe was like supposed to be his twin. He completely neglected Pun's family. You know, his son was an amazing rapper. Not one time did Joe lift a hand to help him. You know, it's a cold business. You know, and I can say that stuff because I don't really care.
Yeah.
You know, like people can't say that. What I just said, they can't. Producers can't say that. Other artists can't say what I just said. But I can say it because I don't depend on music for my livelihood. I've been far out of that game, and I can say the truth. And that's one of the most beautiful things about not being stuck in the business.
Mm.
I can tell it like it is, and that's a fact, you know. And I really hope they don't do that to his family, man, because this guy gave a lot to a lot of people, man. A lot of people became something because of him, and I hope that one of them has a conscience. One of them, you know, someone fight for him. Somebody out there in the business, do the right thing. That's my plead. You know, do the right thing for his legacy, for his family. Like not just the right thing to make his album blow up and make sure people, you know, play his music. No, I'm saying like do the right thing. Like he gave you all a lot. Make sure you take care of his family. That's to me what we should be thinking about and not just being, you know, selfish because he wasn't really like that. Like he was, you know, I watched the video and someone said that, you know, I wasn't friends with him like that. We were like, you know, it was like a professional relationship, you know, like we hung out like maybe twice, you know, like just one time me and him. And, you know, like I mentioned that on Instagram, you know, like he took me out real quick and, excuse me, and he was driving. He's a crazy driver. And, you know, he's, you know, just like, yo, what's up? You know, like I'm just like overwhelmed by that. Like, you know, I'm a HSP. So I'm a highly sensitive person. So that's just blowing me away. And I'm like, okay, I'm not doing this again. And so, you know, it was like, you know, a blessing for me, you know, to just have known him. And also, I said this on my Instagram, but I want to say it again on our show because this has a lot to do with what we talk about. You know, I didn't know, like, you know, when I made that beat, it was 4 years before, you know, I mean, I've done like, you know, 3 songs with him, but, you know, there's Slippin' is the song, you know, like basically of his career. And I didn't know, and it's the one that's hitting, you know, like I watch it and I can't, when we played it and before we got kicked off, thanks a lot for kicking me off for playing my own song, by the way, internet. And we had to log back on. I'm holding back tears. You know, and it's like, and I've seen it a million times. You know, it's my song. And there's just something special about it. And what I was basically saying is I didn't know. You know, I'm in it. I'm going through depression in my parents' house in the basement. I'm making beats, and I don't know what I'm gonna do in my life. I was trying to do a little independent label. I'm like in the underground scene, and I'm like, am I gonna? You know, I got to start figuring out how am I gonna? You know, am I gonna get a job? Am I gonna do? I was working at a job I didn't like, and I'm like, am I gonna like just work a job, or am I gonna be able to do music? And I'm like going through this like early 20s. You know, what I think anyone goes through in their early 20s, because you really got to fixate on how you're going to feed yourself and how you're going to take care of yourself and grow. And I made that track, and 4 years later, I hit play on a DAT machine. Next thing you know, I'm in the studio. Next thing you know, we're mixing it down. Next thing you know, Def Jam clearing the sample like that same night. Next thing you know, everyone's like, this is the single, and everyone's excited, and everyone's like, who did that? And it was my first, you know, basically my first night in the studio with Rough Riders signed, and and it was a big moment. But you know, what I'm trying to say is you don't know. You know, you might be a musician out there, and you're just making something right now. You know, and I know other stories like that. Like I saw the Hotel California story. Someone had a demo on a cassette and that kind of spin the whole thing. It was like kind of this rhythm. You don't know what you're going to do and how it's going to affect people. And, you know, no one knows until it happens, you know, until DMX just passed, I think. And I want to say something too about like, energy and when people pass away, there's this thing going around about flowers. Give them their flowers while they're alive, and people will say, "Oh, well, now all of a sudden everybody loves X." Now that he's dead. But I want to speak to that because I had to question that. Throughout this process. Even for myself, and I believe. And here's where Dr. Ivan will probably shut me down, but I believe strongly because I've seen too much that when someone passes away, something happens. Something that we don't understand, something bigger than all of us. Something where their energy or their essence and everything that they became or why they were here, I believe gets released to us all. And I believe that those close to the person receive that. And in someone like him, there's millions close to him because of the music. So the release is that much greater. And then I believe that it gives you a clarity about the person that you couldn't get. It's not that people are cold, that they're not giving flowers, and people shouldn't be forced to give flowers when because it's an ego thing, like, oh, give me my flowers. Nah, you get your flowers when you get them, live, dead. That's not something that should be forced or manipulated or guilted into. You get them when you get them, if you get them. That's the way they should work, not this whole cultural thing that give me my flowers when I'm alive. Because there's something about those flowers after you pass away. They're different. They're spiritual. They're more profound. There's something there, and this is something I've been learning. Like like yesterday, bro. I left my house. I turn on the car. I mean, I know they're playing it like crazy, so people could say it's coincidence, but not the way it was, man. I walked to my car. I hit the start button, and as soon as it comes on, like if it was a movie, it goes. Hot 97 remembers DMX. Slippin' comes on. I turn on, make a right. Guess where I was gonna do errands. That comes on. Guess where I start to head to, Derek?
You gotta go to
my
the park.
Exactly. I make the left on the street from my park. I look at the tree, and there's an X spray painted on it. How many trees have an X spray painted on them? And that's when I recorded that video right after that happened. And even a friend of mine, who's listening to one of the songs, Here We Go Again, that I did with X, and he says, I just found, and he sent me this message like I had just found out he passed, and so did he, I guess. And he's like, man, I'm listening to your song with X, and I look up and he records it because it's just unbelievable. And on a big wall, it says SHOK in a big piece. So not only does it says Shok, but it's spelled the way I spell it. And he's in Buffalo. So it's like, I mean, you want to sit here, and I could go on, I could go on. And people want to say it's all coincidence. People want to say it's this and that. And you know what, man? It's not a coincidence. I'm going to tell you, the difference is whether or not you're in tune, you're looking, you're seeking, and you're on that frequency. It's a frequency, man. It's a frequency. You gotta be sensitive to it. You gotta be able to hear it. It's like having a musical ear. It's like knowing what sounds good. It's spiritual, where you're sensitive to it. You're like, and I believe it's like you might give out. I don't know how it works. I'm not saying. Me, I'm not talk. I never talk like I know facts about this stuff. I'm just, it's all mysterious to me. So I'm just like I'm an observer, and I'm reporting back like, okay, I feel like it's like a tuning fork or something that we're tuning ourselves. And if you're tuned up right, you're gonna receive something. You're gonna, when things happen, you're gonna just, there's something about it. It just happens, And it's a tune. It's synchronization. There's a billion names of it. But me being a music guy, I go to what I know. It's like you're on key. You're playing the right key.
Mm.
And I know I said a lot, Derek, but I had a lot to say.
Yeah.
I did a good 25 minutes. I think I never done that. And thank you for letting me, because I had to get all that off my chest. And, I've been thinking about all this stuff a lot, man.
Yeah. Well, thank you for saying all that, Mike. And yeah, gosh, driving into the park. I mean, wow.
Yeah, man. I should have took a pic. I could go right now and take the picture. I'll go back there today probably if the weather's nice. Can't stay away from my park.
We talked a little bit about X before our show last week. And I mentioned that people want to put rappers into their own category because I don't think there was much artistically that came before them, or that there's not a lot like them. Poets maybe, but a rapper is an artist, like a painter is an artist throughout history, and there is a long history. That's what artistry is let me show you my experience. And again, whether you're reading a book or listening to a song, looking at a painting, you hear something, see something that resonates with you. You say, hey, that's kind of like my experience too.
Resonates is a beautiful word for it. Resonates.
But DMX came to prominence. We were all introduced to him during a period of hip hop, I think, that was particularly like hard and kind of this beginning of like braggadocious and stuff like that. And yet, at DMX, his voice, like he's got the gravel, one of the best voices ever. But Slippin' is an incredibly vulnerable song. And when you have people who are very like masculine and tough and everything, it's all the more difficult to show some vulnerability, let alone, I mean, wow, even
to that level.
Imagine how emotional it had to be for him to shoot that music video, wherein he's ostensibly like recreating these very difficult, very formative moments in his own childhood.
How hard that, imagine that.
And like he has to be there on set when they're doing that, and he's like watching that. And that's what showing those vulnerabilities and those difficulties is what artistry is since the beginning of time, since the cave drawings. And yet, there is no Mark Twain essay that is as directly vulnerable as Slippin' is. There's no Picasso painting. Everything, art has a tendency to show you a little bit of this kind of thing, and maybe it makes you feel this kind of way, or a book is a metaphor for a thing that's a larger concept that maybe you could pull some. But Slippin' is confessional in a raw way, and it's kind of like, here it all is. And
which is hard no matter what. But that's why before I wanted to emphasize,
people go to therapy, they can't even talk about themselves like that.
That is hard for anyone. Now imagine him in the studio with people who are, ego times 100, who are trying to play a role, who are in no way vulnerable, who would never express any type of feeling. They're just these tough guys playing these roles. Now imagine that. And then you're also perceived. Remember, as this street guy, this guy that doesn't take, that this guy that he'll fight you right now, like you're perceived as this guy. And then you go in there and you make these type of songs. The courage level is like, it's insane. It's insane. Because like if I was to do a song like that, it would be like, okay, Mike is the sensitive guy. And I'm scared to do that.
Yeah.
So now you take this guy who's got this role, and that's why it's so remarkable, because it should encourage all of us to tell our story. Your story, and the thing is, your story is everything. It's everything. That's all we got. You can go to university, read all the books, in my fake bookshelf behind me. Do what you want. Become Mr. Religious Extraordinaire and teach us all about your fancy little theology. But the most powerful thing that you have, that everyone has, is what's inside you, your story, your experience. And he understood that, man. Like he understood that at like a crazy level.
Yeah, and apparently at
An
a very
insane level.
young
Like
age too.
he understood that. Like, I mean, he went through a lot to get there, more than most of us could bear. And so, it it's it's remarkable. And I and yeah, I didn't realize a lot of this till he passed away. I'm gonna be honest about that. I didn't realize the magnitude of it. It didn't hit me, I'm telling you, man, those flowers that you get when you pass away, that I'm giving him, they're special, and they should not be looked at like, oh, now you're gonna. Nah, I couldn't give him before.
Hmm.
I couldn't give him those flowers before because they didn't exist. Something happens when people pass away. Something breaks through. There's something. It's spiritual. It's bigger than we are. And I just learned that, and that's why I'm repeating it, because I think it's special, it's beautiful, and they're not, you can give someone physical roses right now, but you can't give them these. They gotta be gone from here. Then they can get these.
And I understand a frustration in wanting to appreciate somebody, and we should appreciate people to the extent we can, but you are correct. When someone leaves, something is obviously different, and that has a very profound ripple effect. I mean, if it's anybody, let alone DMX, who millions and millions of people on the entire planet Earth were affected by him.
I mean, Jesus got no flowers when he was alive.
Yeah. Seriously.
I mean, if we're gonna go to the pinnacle of someone who should have got some flowers, he got none.
Yeah.
Zippity doo dah. Only after the passing, the resurrection, the whole story. After all that,
Finally.
then he,
Like,
and then he reluctantly got him. All right, you sure? Let me poke at you. Let me check you out. Is this really? That feat was what got the flowers. So, I really, because I don't know. I mean, I'm more in like, these other circles of conversations, Derek, than I think maybe you are sometimes. And that's why I keep repeating the flower thing, because that's a big thing in hip hop. Give me my flowers. Give me my flowers. Now, nah, man. Nah. I'm speaking out against that. Like, don't give me my flowers. Give me like, if you want to buy me real flowers, all right, fine. I'll give them to my wife. I'm not really as interested in them, but, those flowers, they're different. Wait till, they come naturally. Don't force it. It's like ego feeding ego. It's like, give me my flower. Yo, I'm going to give you your flowers. You give me my flower. Nah, man. Nah. Do the real thing. Like, that's genuine. They're different. They're not the same. That's the thing that I realized. They're not the same. It's different. Person passes away. There's a special understanding you get that you can't get when they're alive. You just can't get it. It's just the way it is.
I'd like to mention as well, Mike, two things that we talk about on the show frequently. One of them is being a religious or a spiritual person, what it means to live a life of service. That's like a turn of phrase I think that gets thrown around a fair amount. And I think in a modern context, intuitively we think, wow, we gotta go down to a food bank and volunteer or something, and that's cool. People should do that. But also, living a life of service means, like Marcus Aurelius Meditations kind of thing. He defined a fugitive as a person who's evading the responsibilities of their life. And it appears that, because now, after his passing, all these kind of stories come out about DMX. About, even I saw a lady, I think her name was Jen Fraser on Twitter, and she had a story that she was on a flight and she got upgraded to first class, and DMX just happened to sit next to her, and she's just, some regular mom lady. And they start talking, and he's like showing her social media stuff because he doesn't know how to use Twitter as well. And she's like, "Oh, let me help you out with this stuff." And then, they end up giving her a backstage pass. She comes to the show and everything. That living a life of service can, in certain instances, be sharing your difficulty so that others can feel better, or when they experience those kinds of things, not be so blindsided by them, not feel so alone because of them.
Yeah.
And again, for people go to therapy and they can't figure out what's going on in their life, and they don't know why. I'm just feeling this way and I don't know why. And again, just in Slippin', it's right there. DMX had such
mind you, that's
such a
20 years ago.
Right.
That's before, like, now we're a little bit more accepting of therapy. If I say,
Yeah, true.
20 years ago,
It was not okay.
no, but especially a Hispanic minority or African American, if you were going to therapy, you weren't sharing that.
Yeah, right. That was a
Like,
deep.
that's what I mean. The amount of courage that took, like, and that's what I mean. When you take that, it comes, it happens, and if you're not really in tune, I wasn't in tune at that moment. I didn't. I mean, I knew it was something great and special, but not like how I am now. Like I hadn't even found a voice at that time in my life. I didn't even have a voice of my own voice, and that's why I appreciate what he said, because he said it, in some way. He said that he tries to be the voice for the voiceless. And man, for someone like me who was so shy and quiet and reserved and just did my work and tried to let my music speak for me because I didn't have a voice. One of the CEOs always used to say that producers are weird. He said, "I don't understand you guys. Like you're all weird. You sit down the machine," and he'd get frustrated with us sometimes because I guess we didn't communicate in the way everybody else did. And he was a good communicator. Like, he is a communicator. This person that's saying that, and he didn't understand, man. A lot of times not all producers are like this, but a good amount of hip hop producers, anyone who spends that much time sitting on a machine, it's a lot of times, producers don't find their voices till much later. They start out in the back, quiet, and then sometimes they find their voice. But a lot of times what inspires you to make the music is because you don't have a voice and you don't know what your voice is and you haven't found it. And then the only way to express yourself is through music itself, because you don't have the words. Like, for example, at that time in my life, if someone would have said to me, "What's wrong?" I would have to say I don't know if I was going to be honest, or ignore them, or I just wasn't in touch with the deeper things of life. I was just very just in survival mode, and that's the thing. Like, picture that, like someone who he had to work that stuff out to do what he did in this life, and he's just in perseverance alone, man. Just like, you could, all the other stuff I said, I think is mad important, but just as a level of persevering, just that alone that's that. If that doesn't mean something, then I don't know what does.
And
Just that alone.
another thing we often say too, Mike, is the difference between knowledge and wisdom. And how I think we very much would side with wisdom in a great many cases as opposed to knowledge. DMX didn't go to Yale, he didn't go to Oxford. But in terms of giving somebody flowers, does anybody at this current moment have any problem with saying that DMX was a brilliant guy? Through his experience and his ability to share that with us, he was very wise from a particularly young age, which is a lot of what contributed to his being a generational talent, and a voice of a generation in a lot of ways. And it goes to show, I mean, you couldn't have a more concrete example of someone who, through life experience, coupled with a very sensitive mind, combined those things to not only have a very wise mind to help process things yourself, but to then, like, again, live that life of service and share it with all of us.
And to know that that was important.
Exactly. I mean,
Not do it for. See, the thing is, that's the kicker to me.
Yeah.
To do it, and because you're doing that, you kind of in the back of your head, you have to think, I don't know exactly how this is going to go down. You know, like, are people gonna? You got it. You can't be. I mean, maybe he was. Who knows? You know, but I mean, I feel like you got to at least be 2%. Like, I'm not sure how this is going to go down.
At least a small part.
I feel like something
Yeah.
has to be there, to a little bit of something, and to just push through. You know, just to push through that, to do that, and to know this is important. Why? Because this could help somebody. I mean, come on. Like, you could do any type of music you want.
Yeah, right.
You know, you could, anybody would make him a hit record with a hook.
Mm-hmm.
Just call the highest, the top producer, call Pharrell. Instant classic. Pharrell, I need something, blah, blah. Boom. Put your voice on it, and that's it.
Mm.
But, to choose that path on purpose.
And it does seem to be something that was particularly important to him, even as evidenced by that video that you shared. Now, you shared when it happened, which was only like a year ago or something. But this kind of battle between X and Snoop Dogg going back and forth. And, when Slippin' ends, X says, you've got to write that pain. You've got to write that pain.
That's right. Yes, I remember that. Yes.
And
you've got to write that pain. And he was talking to the younger artists, the young generation.
Right. And the way, you can just tell the way he says it, he's like, feels so strongly convicted by that. He wasn't like, this is something he felt like he should say, or he heard somebody say.
No, it was like it was everything. It's the whole picture.
Right. Right.
And I think it's that he understood. He understood we are our stories. We are our stories. We should listen more to each other. Me and you should definitely do that idea of going around and people who are living on the street and listening to their stories. Because we could learn a lot from each other, and the stories. Tell your story. Some write. Do if anything, from this can come good, into our lives. We lost somebody in the hip hop community, but he should definitely, his life should push everyone to tell their story. It helps everyone. It's a fact. It's very hard to do. Trust me, because I'm trying to do it right now. It's very hard. It's messy. It hurts. You don't want to do it sometimes. You pull back. You want it, and then you like, should I say this part? And you know what? He had this attitude that we should all adapt. Like F it. Like whoever's got a problem with it, they got a problem with it. Whoever doesn't like what I said, if I'm particularly addressing someone or a situation that's wrong, I don't care. Think about that. It's easy to diss the industry when you're underground,
Hmm.
but it takes balls after selling 10 million records. At that time, I think around there, must have been around 10 million. This is years ago. To go up and do that, poem about the industry and just wreck it, and to constantly speak out against it, that takes genuineness, because what he's saying is true, but ain't nobody talking about it, and a lot of people, speak on things, but not in such an intentional way, like where they want you to know this is what's going on and this is how it is, and we should maybe do something about it. Maybe we should take care of this.
Mm.
And yeah, the industry's terrible, man. It's terrible. I mean, look at me. That particular song, producer royalties. I got one check once, and it was for a week worth. The last week of 1998, I got one producer royalty for that, and that's the business. That's just the way it is, and they don't care. You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't care because it's commonplace. And then you look also, he talked about the industry, and right now there's that story I talked about, Black Rob, a big artist on Bad Boy hit records. He's in a spot right now. He's homeless. The video's floating around on Instagram. I mean, and do you really? I mean, we know the business. You really think Puffy's gonna do something about that? No. So people just started a GoFundMe
Damn.
for him, who just can't bear to see one of these artists who gave them so much in that situation.
Mm.
Well, you think the CEOs? No, I'm going in today on those guys because I really don't care. I'm taking a page out of X's book, and a lot of those people, they should care, but they don't, and they've grown so cold. To be that successful in the business, you got to grow cold. You got to be very, these people shuffle around the people in their life at a snap of a finger. In an instant, they'll shuffle everybody around their assistant, their this, the person they grew up with, they just move people, and jump onto this and this, and it's all very intentional to just be successful. Move from here, move to there. It's like these calculated decisions, and there's a lot of people that fall by the wayside. Most do. There's a small, you see these big parties and these big things with everybody all dressed up and everything, and it's a small group. It's a small group. It's not a big group of people. It's not a big venue they had to do to get the people who run the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all best friends, and they're constantly giving each other flowers, and and you know what? They need to realize that we are all one. Like without X, Rough Riders would be nothing. Without X, you got to realize you're one. You can't be arrogant and be like, I could have done this myself. Nah, without X, my music wouldn't have gone to the world, and I wouldn't have been able to accomplish what I accomplished without what he went through, and then he put that on my music. I mean, we got to be more real about and humble about things, and we can't keep pretending that we did it. Oh yeah, I did. I struggled. Nah, and that's another thing. He never really went on those rants. Ain't nobody helped me. I did no.
Yeah.
There's a lot to learn from this guy.
Mm.
There's a lot to learn from this guy that we missed. He never did that. Well, all these other guys, yeah, I came, and nah, no, you don't get, hey, we got to be more as one. We got to be more like, nah, this couldn't have happened without this, without that. It's not just, these people in these powerful positions, they get it twisted and they really believe they did they did it, and like you're lucky to that they even let you come along for the ride. No, no, it's not like that. You know, without one, the other isn't. But and that goes both ways. They need, we need each other, and we need more of that in the business. And we got to get, for the business to get better, we got to get free from this corporate stronghold, and people got to stop kissing corporate's ass, man. Because the truth is, if you say "f you" to all these guys, that are so big and all that, if enough, but you know what the problem is, then the next guy is gonna kiss their button. So it's this real hard cycle to break.
Yeah, but it does. It
Very
starts with
hard.
you, you know. But I do agree it's
Yeah.
hard to break. And X is a perfect example. But even in anyone's life, in any job that you work at, you know the people who are quote unquote more successful, and you know the
Mm-hmm.
people who maybe aren't at that level but really want to get to that level, so they do kiss ass a whole lot.
Oh yeah.
And doesn't it feel to most people like, oh God, like doesn't it? Why are they doing that? Why I don't want to.
Yeah.
Why can't we just like be in a nice place where I feel like that's how most people feel. So this notion that
And those, I would dare say, those are the voiceless,
they are, which is crazy because it's
which is the majority.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so this idea that humans, well, we're no different than the lions in the jungle, and that ultimately, we're all cavemen and we're cutthroat bastards, and you got to get yours, otherwise somebody's going to come and take it from you. I think that's not really any type of majority of humans. And when you see people who are constantly seeking success at all costs and willing to throw any and everything out of the way in order to get there, that's not what we are. And negativity has this short burst of power and fades very quickly. That's why those people have to constantly reinforce those behaviors.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's very true.
But
That's why they have
positivity,
to
love, and
constantly.
compassion, as Kyle Butler said, that's easy. That's who we are.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
especially as
Loving is light, right? That was the
loving
one
is
you coined that one.
yeah,
I think loving is light.
with people like yourself, and certainly like DMX, when you have achieved some level of success in the industry of this very, let's say, toxic thing, it becomes all the more difficult. It's like once you're on the inner sanctum, it's very hard to say anything. That's why
And it's hard.
you've told me, and certain people you just can't reach out to because they don't have the courage. It's easy for me to say, but they don't have the courage to speak out against a thing that has helped them financially or
Yeah.
otherwise.
Yeah, because it would hurt their whole livelihood. That's the truth. I mean, the only reason I've been able to do anything, fight back in any way, is because I'm not relying on it. If I was relying on it, I could possibly be just like them, and that's the hard truth, when you really and the thing is they have you in a bad spot because we love music.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine that they're holding. Think about it. It's like I'm gonna make an analogy, and I hope it's not crude, but it's like someone holding your wife hostage because you love your wife so much, and they're like, well, you want to see her tonight? Well, okay, well, we don't have any money for you, and don't worry, we'll work it out. And you're like, oh my god, if I want to see my wife, I have to like put up with
I
this.
better do it.
I mean, I know
it.
it might be crude. I didn't know how to do a good analogy, but the point is, I mean, if you're a music person, you know what I'm talking about. You love music, like I mean, Derek, you're a music guy. Like, it's something inexplainable. Like and imagine you're in a situation where you're working with the best artists. They got you in a trap because they can take it away. They can. You to be like powerful enough to like say no to the really powerful people. I mean, it's one in a million to get in, And I would say it's like 1 in 2 million to be that powerful
Yeah.
to call the shots,
Right.
completely call them. Like
Nobody gets to do that.
it's crazy, crazy.
I want to throw up some of these comments we've been getting, Mike, because we've been on a roll
Yeah.
here, so we kind of let them wash over us. But there's some good ones in here. Issa says, no one person can question anyone's salvation. There is only one person, Jesus Christ. And you will be judged when you meet your Maker. So far be it from any other person to say, well, this is because that's obviously happened because they didn't.
Yeah.
X, blah,
Well,
blah,
you know,
blah.
it's funny
It's
because
like,
it even says that in the scriptures, and somehow
not
they,
that it
you know,
matters, right?
the very, you know, highly. But that's what I mean. It's like, you know, that guy Ambassador, you know, like he's comes on so smart, and you know, with all this, you know, like, you know, now I gotta say, you know, he had real books. I have fake books. He had real books behind him.
He just had fake
You know,
wisdom.
the nerve. He had real books and fake wisdom. Yeah, so it's like, you know, and that's they just take stuff and they twist it around and they do all these contortions with all these different passages and just to validate themselves and make themselves more special. You know, we're the light.
Hmm.
You know, we have to be the light. Really, bro? Like he wasn't a light. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on, man. Like other people aren't the light. Come on. It's just not even reasonable to think that only people who are in your exact theology are the light.
Hmm.
It's ridiculous.
This is another thing I've enjoyed the past couple of days, seeing these really pretty prophetic quotes from DMX, even to suffering is to live, or to suffer is to live, which is something we talk about on the show all the time, you know, suffering is grace, that kind of a thing. Johnny Whitfield says, I want to know what the devil sounds like so I can accept the voice of God when I hear it.
Yeah,
Which is another very good one.
yeah.
Navi,
And we talk about that's very Alan Watts too.
yeah, I know.
See,
Yeah, you need to have
without
the
that,
devil.
you don't have the other.
Right.
You don't have the other. So I mean, if you think, I mean, it's profound. People are going to be digging into his lyrics, and they're going to really realize now, like, how profound they are.
Mm-hmm. Back to Issa, art and music are expressions of the times you live, so it's forever changing with the struggles and joys people are living in those moments. I think that is
That's
true.
a good one.
And I think it's also true the opposite as well, that there are certain things that are kind of timeless. There are probably plenty of people who could listen to Slippin' today and think, oh, wow, I experienced that kind of thing. John says, hard for us to associate vulnerability with bravery. That is very true.
It is.
I think there's
until you try to be vulnerable. Once you try, if you never try to be vulnerable, then you can't associate it because you don't have a clue. But if you ever tried
to be actually
even
vulnerable.
just try, you don't even have to do it. Just try and you'll understand. You'll be like, damn.
That took a lot out of me, I guess.
That is not easy. That's a difficult one. I'll forget about that.
Navi, DMX was anointed. His music literally spoke his path, and many of us were with him.
Yes.
I do agree with that.
Charlemagne says that all the time, and I agree with that for sure.
John says, I love it when Shok unsheaths the sword.
Yeah, sometimes I got to do it, man. I can't help it, man. Sometimes.
And I'll have to read more about this, Mike, but Navi says that it always felt like X was blackballed after that industry poem. His career went down.
I mean, there was... That. Things did get a little rocky.
It's exactly that way. Most of these guys are married to the game, Navi says. So what was that?
That's the thing. He knew that.
I'm afraid to say I'm unfamiliar.
Check it out.
It was a poem,
the
so it
industry
wasn't like
don't
a
give
track?
about you. Without the industry, no, but without you, there would be no industry. I think that might be like the closing line. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a poem. It's dope. He's like the industry, and then he don't give a F about you, but it wouldn't be without you. He's it's about man. And listen, if you've even dabbled in the industry, you can relate. Mm. It's unforgiving. And the worst thing that I hate now being older, I'm seeing a different angle of it. I saw the other side when I was younger, and now I'm seeing the angle of the discarding of people. It's just they lock you out. You don't play the game right. You want to get paid. They lock those people out. But the interesting thing is, like, he knew what he was doing He's cognizant. He's not like, I'm gonna, like naive. Like he's
Right.
not. Nah. He's like, nah. I'm gonna say this, and yeah, whatever. You wanna pull back my promotion. You wanna like make my life a little harder. Fine, but this I'm gonna say the truth, and that's something that's not something to sneeze at. That's like you try that. Go to work and spit the industry at your job tomorrow. Not the industry, but I mean the industry in your industry.
Yeah.
Like spit those bars,
Right. Go tell your
and then
boss
see how
what
that
the
works out
real
for you.
deal is.
Because that's what he did. And that's not an easy thing to do.
Almost no one has that courage.
Hmm.
Lou might have a good little button for us here. Nina Simone quote, "You can't help it. An artist's duty, as far as I'm concerned, is to reflect the times in your life." That
Yeah.
goes back to what I was saying at the beginning of artistry. And we've talked about this going back to, just paint, that kind of thing. It's so bizarre and strange and unlikely to be alive as a person today that I think a lot of art is just a reflection of how confusing and scary and weird and amazing and exciting this bizarre thing called life is.
Yeah. Oh, it's bizarre.
And the more that you can strip away the layers of this, this veneer that we all kind of put on that everything's fine. No, it's fine. It's totally normal. Everything's totally fine. The more that you can strip away to that vulnerability, which of course is indeed quite brave, because again, we walk through life mostly not doing that, mostly avoiding that at all costs.
Yeah. Yeah. Even in your most intimate relationships, just being real with that person, just to get your relationship to a point. I mean, like, we can. I like to always, we started on the big world, the big scheme, the big system, but it always ends up, in the micro part of it, which is like our lives, our world, or our significant other, our partner, our parents, wherever stage you are in life, whether even if you're alone right now, those things apply. You have to be brave. You have to tell your story. You should not put yourself in situations where your voice is not heard. And X stood for that magnificently. Your voice should be heard. Your story is important. How you've been treated and what you've gone through. And you know what? I want to add something. He did it in such a way too, and I don't think I mentioned this because I thought about this too. He did it in a way where it wasn't like, and my friend mentioned this when we were talking about it. He did it in a way where it wasn't like that guy ambassador that I keep dogging. And he deserves it.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't do it in that way. He did it in a way where he didn't say you need to do this and and look at this and look and this says that, and no, he did it in a way where he told his story, and that was it. He didn't say, so you need to stop doing this.
Mm-hmm.
So you need no. He just said. And then people condemn him for being so damn honest. They would say, so how's your struggle going? He would say, I'm always going to be struggling with that.
Mm-hmm.
That never stops. And then they say, oh, he's still struggling with that. Instead of being like, damn,
I'm struggling too.
that is so damn transparent.
Yeah.
So
courageous.
He's that is mad courageous and mad transparent. That's like, who does that? You know what I'm saying? Like if you beat it, he's like, like I've been clean for 2 months. Yay!
Oh, yeah, he did it.
He could have done that,
Sure.
but no, he was just brutally honest, and he said,
I'm sorry.
I'm always going to be struggling with that.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that's like we could learn something from that.
Yeah.
Be brutally honest, and sometimes people confuse just being honest with humility. Just being honest is so rare that people confuse it with humility. Oh, he's a humble guy. Just being honest.
Mm-hmm.
Really, that doesn't mean necessarily you're humble, but we rarely see honesty so much that we don't even know like what box to put it in.
Right.
And we don't even appreciate the honesty the way we should.
True.
And I think that's one of the reasons why we live in so much confusion too. Because if we just really told our stories, really expressed ourselves, it would be, I'm not saying life would not, I'm definitely not on the Kyle level of, life would be perfect and if everyone would just X, Y, and Z. Nah, it would still be struggle. And I do, I don't want to blow X's spot, but this gave me more respect for him too when I found this out though. But that quote is from Viktor Frankl.
Yeah.
And I'm perfectly happy that everyone's taking it for X
Just
because
let's
he's the
just
one who
say,
popularized it.
yes.
But that goes to say that when he was wherever he maybe whatever situations he was in, he was reading.
Mm.
You don't get as smart as he was
Without reaching into
by not reading a couple books.
kind of, yeah.
Okay,
some
so he
touchstones
must
of
have
the
read
past.
Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl, and that stayed with him because it is an amazing quote. And so that's just to show you, you don't know the depth of who someone is just by looking at them and assuming who they are by anything. Yeah, and I would definitely want to say something about that. Leaf is what's up, Leaf? He's saying that's what made him so relatable indeed. And the New York Daily News cover is disgusting. Yeah, that really triggered me too, man. But it's what I've been talking about, Leaf. It's like because he was so transparent. In a way, they can try what they want to do, like on that cover. But because he was so transparent, it's like coming at me with a weapon that I've already exposed on myself. It's like he was so transparent. You could throw whatever you want at him. He's already thrown it at himself first. And he didn't even throw it at himself. He was just trying to take it and make something beautiful out of it. Whereas, and that's the nature of people to judge. You have the secular judgment and then you have the religious judgment. And that's what we all need to be free from, all that. And I believe that he stood for that, man. Like it's crazy. Like when he's this hardcore guy just pops up with a prayer, like, and again, man, the those religious systems and all that. Anybody who wants to question his salvation, shame on you. Shame on you. First of all, even within your own understanding, that goes against Scripture, and that goes against love. That goes against heart. And how disrespectful is that to someone's family? You know what I mean? And especially someone like him who, he gave $650,000 to a church in Yonkers at one time, the one he had gone to. Really, and he didn't keep a lot of money. Like he was obviously he struggled with some stuff financially because you hear about it in the press. So he gave that 650 to them, and then maybe maybe he didn't have nothing after that. Maybe that's why he foreclosed on something or whatever, all this news they have popping up. So, people are always going to judge. People are always going to judge. They're going to judge you, and that goes back too. But even though he got judged, even though people said things about him, he still kept telling his truth. He still kept being who he is. He still didn't care about that. He made mistakes. Yeah, we all do. And honestly, that's the lesson that we should all take from him. Be you. Be yourself. Screw what they say. They say this. The religion says this. Religion says that. Well, I got my thing with God, whatever that is, and that's what it is. It takes a lot of bravery, and it takes it's a beautiful thing, and that's how I hope people remember him. And I know we gone a little long, but prayers to his family. And again, I hope and I pray that because right now his family is having to play the role he played in defending him versus the industry. The industry is coming in and they're trying to do what they always do. I'm sure about it because that's the game. The game is nothing pretty. It's nothing nice. It's always cutthroat. And they want to capitalize on this. And then you're going to have his family fighting to do what's right. And I hope that God give them the strength to hold on and to fight the fight the way he did, because I'm sure he taught them. And I know it's not going to be easy because it's not their role. He played that role. He he played that role when he was here, and they're gonna have to. And I hope and pray that he gives them the strength, because industry they're monsters. They're monsters. They just want to eat. That's all they want to do is eat. They don't care about nobody. The kids, nothing. I'm sorry, but that's the way it is. That's what I've seen. So I hate to end on like a kind of a bitter note there, but like John said, sometimes I pull out the sword. I can't help myself. But sometimes I think you have to.
I think you're right, man. And it cannot be stated enough that vulnerability requires tremendous bravery. And we think of bravery on a battlefield, and you have your shield and your sword out, and you're being very aggressive and telling everybody off, and that's very brave of you to do. And actually, that's kind of a default thing that a lot of people have, almost everybody has. That to be honest and to be vulnerable requires a tremendous amount of courage.
It does.
And it's hard enough to do to your spouse, to your mom,
not to the world,
let alone to the entire planet.
Yeah, how much do we hide just from the people right next to us?
Exactly.
Now you're just gonna go on blast like that.
It's very inspiring, man. It really is.
Indeed, a life well lived, for sure.
Agreed.
So I say, we got want to do one last comment from Navi, and then close up.
Let's do it.
Navi says, "If you know X, then you know X." That's been like the term since he passed away. With all these stories surfacing, I have many, but even knowing X, he just wanted to be able to touch someone through his truth. That's perfect closing. Thank you, Navi. That's perfect, man. That's beautiful, and I think that is the way to go on this show, and start to fade out. And what do we got here? Any more comments? We got talk about courage. Honest people don't hide their deeds. And oh, do we have PK this week?
Who do we got this week? I think we might have
I'm so bad with this.
A comedian friend of mine, Derek Lamar, this week. I think PK is the 28th. John Whitfield is the 21st. So we got some great episodes coming up.
Wednesdays,
7 p.m. We will be on our Content late night show. Very much looking forward to that. Can I just end on a nice, again,
please do.
DMX's life of service. At one point, for some reason, I saw this story floating around, I'm sure people have seen, where he was going to be in a boxing match with George Zimmerman. I don't know if you heard about this.
I did think I heard about that. Well, I don't even know whatever happened with that.
Well, it didn't happen. Unfortunately. God, I wish it did. But DMX's quote, and I'm going to curse here on Sunday morning if ever there were a good reason. DMX's quote about the upcoming boxing match with George Zimmerman was, and I quote, "I'm going to beat the living fuck out of him. I'm breaking every rule in boxing to make sure I fuck him up right."
There you go. No fear.
No fear, man. And talk about a life of service. Doesn't George Zimmerman need to have his ass beat? Oh, man.
Oh, too bad that never happened. Because that would have been good to see that happen. All right, guys. Thanks again for tuning in, and thanks for listening. And we appreciate you.